Hi everyone, and welcome to Shocked Bowden, Little Girl Bowden number 5. And if you're listening, I want you to know that this is a lot of sensitive content about sexual abuse, domestic violence, emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse. And so if it triggers you, you need to immediately go to another podcast instead of listening to this one, because the things that I am saying here is real, and it may just put you in a position where you feel like you are that person in that position. Okay, so today I'm talking about anxiety and how my anxiety came about. And sometimes, it's like we don't want to admit that we have these issues because sometimes you get afraid of family members and you get afraid of friends not looking at you the same because you have certain mental disorders. But the first time I realized I had anxiety was like years ago. I think I would say I was around 16 or actually I'm going to say 16, and yeah, around 16. At my early 16, around the time when I first turned, would it have been 16? It was between 15 and 16 years old. That's what I'm going to say. It was between both of those times when I first realized that I had anxiety, and I was treated for anxiety and put into a psych ward because I kept having all these hallucinations and stuff. And so I had to be, whatever it is that they give you at that time. I was given a lot of medication to sedate me because the anxiety had got really bad. If you hear the rain out here, it's storming here, but that's why if you're listening and it's daytime, you should wait till it's nighttime to listen to this podcast so the rain could ease your mind a little bit. But what happened was I have seen so many people, dead bodies. Dead bodies was the beginning of it all. The first time I saw a dead body, and I actually, prayed on it, I saw 2 dead bodies within like the first couple of years of being on my own. And that really shook me up. I didn't know how to deal with it. It was really hard for me because the second dead body that I had saw was that of a friend of mine. And I was just like, I was laying down sleep, getting ready for work basically, and I have this horrible nightmare of my friend being murdered. Now, we wasn't super close friends. As a matter of fact, I couldn't stand the dude because the guy I was going with, he had him out all the time drinking and around other women. So of course I didn't like him too much, but he was still one of those friends that you don't like, but they still your friend. Okay. And so what ended up happening was, this guy in particular, his name was Widow. He was a Hispanic male. And, for some reason, I just never really liked him. I didn't like him touching me or anything. But anyway, yeah, because he used to try to talk to me behind my ex's back. But what happened was I dreamed that dream, and that next night he was found dead, laying the exact way that I dreamed that he would die. And that was very traumatic to me. That was very scary to me when the police called me and my boyfriend up to identify the body, to identify who he was. Because at that time, the Hispanic guy was from El Salvador that I was dating at that time. And he was a translator. And anytime that dude had something going on, he always came to us for my ex to translate for him. And so we get up there and we identify the body, and it's just a gross out scene. There's blood. I mean, he's just laying in a puddle of blood, laying flat on his back with his chest blew wide open. And that was the first time that I had witnessed something that looked that horrific. I've seen a lot of dead bodies, and in my time, over the course from the age of 15 on up, I've seen a lot of dead bodies that was part of murders. It was friends of mine that were murdered, Hispanic friends that were murdered. So I saw a lot of that over in my days. So this guy, he's laying there with his chest blew open, and he still has on his pants. He has on his shirt that is shot open on him, and he's laying there the exact same way I dreamed that he would be laying there. And that was a little bit like deja vu versus Freddy Krueger type thing. So scary. At that point, I believe that's when my mind was like, this isn't real. This is not happening. And it was hard for me to process the fact that this guy was murdered the exact way that I dreamed that he was murdered. I didn't know anything at that time about spiritual visions or spiritual dreams or anything like that. I didn't know anything about spiritual warnings. I just knew that I had this dream, and the next day it actually happened. Now, they did get the guy that killed him, and they did lock the guy up. Problem was, now I had this anxiety in me from seeing that body laying there, and I couldn't stop it. It was hard to turn it off. I didn't know that there were coping skills that I needed to learn or anything, because it just happened. You don't go through life expecting somebody to just get murdered. You don't look for that. Especially, it's just not normal. Well, not normal, but it's just not something that you get used to, is your friends being murdered. And from that point on, from the time he died, I would go to sleep and I would hear him. His voice would be saying, come to the light, come to the light. Why did you do me like this? I would hear these voices just in my head saying this over and over. Come to the light. You know what you did, and stuff like that. But the thing about it was, there was nothing that I had ever did to that man except welcome him in my home, even though I didn't like his ways. Even back then, I didn't do nothing to him. As a matter of fact, I had told my ex at the time, I was like, you need to really stop hanging with him. He's really a bad influence because he has a lot of mouth. And I really honestly did know that at some point somebody was going to cap his butt. I really did. And I think that was a frightening thing as well, because his mouth was just, he was just one of these guys that just talked so much till you do want to slap him. You do want to hurt him. But, you don't want to pull a time for him. You don't want to murder anybody. But somebody did murder him. And that's what started my anxiety. So I couldn't sleep. I kept working. I worked about 2 weeks. And I kept working. And 2-3 weeks straight, no sleep. Staying up all night long. Because every time I close my eyes, I'm seeing this man in my dreams. I'm seeing him when I'm awake. I'm seeing him everywhere. And so that was the beginning of realizing how bad my anxiety was. But I didn't take it serious even then. Okay. And so now we're going to skip around a little bit, because as a child, we didn't learn coping skills. I didn't learn coping skills. I didn't learn that there was just certain ways that you have to handle certain situations. I never matured in that area, even though, I don't think there is a coping skill you can ever really have that when you see somebody laying there murdered. It's really hard to have self-control, but it is possible. But at that time, it was just unheard of. Never heard of a coping skill in my life. But a lot of the anxiety and fears that I have had came from my parents scaring me all the time. And I want to make this disclaimer. I mean to only talk about me, and sometimes I will say we. And when I say we, sometimes that does mean my sisters or whoever I'm around, my sisters and brothers. But I really do not mean to put them in this at all, but it just flows out like that because that's how it happened. Coming up when we were younger, We weren't allowed to spend the night with people because Mother Cammie was like, well, I don't want my girls around certain people. And those certain people were my Mother Gloria's in-laws. She didn't want us around them, which they were my aunts and uncles. And it was crazy because the anxiety came off on all sides. Everyone that I was around gave me a piece of their anxiety, I would say. Like on my mother's side, the anxiety was anger. Just a lot of anger. They don't know how to sit and talk with you. They are very controlling, very emotional, controlling. If things don't go their way, then it's not going to go any kind of way. And they're going to make sure that you know that they're not going to go along with what you have to say. So that was on my mother's side. That's the type of anxiety that they had. Trying to predict the future. On that side, they try to predict the future a lot to tell you what's going to happen and how you need to handle it. A lot of bosses. Everybody wanted to be a boss on Mother Cammie's side. Everybody wanted to be a boss. Now, on Mother Gloria, Mother Gloria had different types of anxiety herself. What I got from her was actually anger issues. I actually got the disassociating from her. It was not genetics. I was not born this way. I was trained this way. As a little kid, I wasn't fearful of anything. No dogs, nothing. You name it, I was doing it. And so Mother Gloria would tell us all these stories about haints. Back in the day, they called it haints and all these old wives' tales. And we believed those stories. I believed those stories that I was being told because they sounded so convincing that, a ghost is going to give me, or I see a token, that means somebody's going to die. It was a lot of superstition. A lot of witchcraft came off in Mother Gloria's side, and because of the witchcraft and how she practiced it, it instilled a lot of fear into me and anxiety because I didn't never know what was going to happen. She would have these little crystal balls, and she would go to these witch doctors. And I remember even one time that they had me going to the witch doctor, her and my dad did. And I was like, at this time I was trying to find my home, the home that I have now. And, we'd be down there at their house. At this time I'm old enough to drive my own car and stuff. And so I went down to their house to drink at 16 years old. I was 16. I was 16 or 17. I think 17 though. Y'all have to forgive me on the ages because sometimes I get screwed up. But I went to drink with her, and on that Sunday evening, we were sitting outside, and all of a sudden, she was like, I got to go in the house and make these phone calls. And I didn't think nothing about it, just thinking, she's making phone calls, and it can't be that bad. And, my dad, Joe, says, you done ran the phone bill up to $900 calling psychics, calling these mediums. And at that time, that's at the time when all this is going on, this is how we know to live, is by the witchcraft and stuff. That's what we know at that age. That's what I knew. And so I didn't think nothing was wrong with it. I was like, well, shoot, let me call. And she was like, I'm going to call and we're going to get you a house and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. They're going to tell you how Roberto cheating on you. The ex that I had at that time, his name was Roberto. And they're going to tell you everything that you need to know. And I was like, okay. And so I called the psychic. I was sitting there right along with her. She was calling and I was calling too. So I was in agreement with it at that time, to speak with the psychics and see what they say. And a lot of the psychics really told me things that people prophesy in this time, in this day and age. A lot of times you go to church and you hear the prophesying. Well, guess what? A lot of that is actually some of the same things that psychics and mediums will tell you. And you will believe it and you will go bust your head trying to do what they say do. You will actually take it to heart. And a lot of that caused anxiety trying to do just what they say do. If they say go to this area, if they tell you to go to the graveyard to get some dust, they tell you to go get a lock of somebody's hair, they tell you to go get some pictures or something, you're going to go do it. And so I was involved in that stuff. I was doing it. So, not realizing that I was setting my future up for nothing but anxiety and depression, because when nothing happens, when it doesn't come to pass, that's when you realize you have a problem. And you keep going back and thinking that what they're saying is going to work for you, but it never worked for me. I can't say what anybody else does, but I can say that the witchcraft never worked for me. And maybe that's just because my mind really was not in it like that. So one particular time with Mother Gloria, her and my daddy Joe, we went to Ashboro. And at this time I was trying to figure out, is my old man cheating on me? And what can I do, to make him love me? I honestly thought that there was things that I could do to make him love me more, and that he would marry me and stuff. Not realizing that I'm thanking God to this day that we did not get married. I'm thanking God to this day that I am free from him. And, just for the sake of anyone listening, if you're listening at mediums and psychics and they have told you that this is going to come to pass in a relationship, or that this is how to make somebody love you, it's absolutely not true. You cannot make anybody love you. You can put all kind of spells. You can give them your blood to drink, all that stuff. But at some point when they come to themselves, you don't have the control. You don't have the power that you think you have. And that's all it was I was trying to control what that man was doing to keep him with me, to make him nicer to me. And so this woman, she told me to take an egg. And I said, okay. Well, so this may be part of the reason, too, why I see the things that I'd be seeing. Because this woman told me to take an egg, take it home. She gave me an egg. A little Caucasian woman, real skinny, probably about like 35, 36 years old. She had a baby at the time, and she was a witch. And she told me, she said, take this egg, you go home and you sleep with this egg underneath your pillow, and you say his name over and over, 10 times. Say his name 10 times. Make sure that you do not break the egg while you're sleeping with the egg. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go do this because, I really want this love to work. I really want this thing to work. Not thinking, not knowing better that this is witchcraft and it's really going to make me worse than what I am. So, I decided to go back, and I took the egg back. I did everything that she told me to do. And the whole time I'm fearful. The whole time that I got this egg, I'm fearful that I don't break it, first of all. And then I'm fearful that he doesn't find out about it. That I'm actually trying to win his love through witchcraft. Yeah, through witchcraft. And so I take the egg back to the woman. And once I get up there to her, she has me to wait for a little while. And mind you, I am paying this woman every time I go see her. She was in Ashboro, North Carolina. Every time I would go see this woman, I was paying $100. And for this woman to tell me things that actually my mother Gloria had already told her about me. So, this time I went up there and the woman said, I got to take the egg now. Give me the egg. And so she told me to close my eyes when I handed the egg. And by me being a person, at that time I wasn't a person of faith. I was just out here, a free spirit, just roaming. And I told her, okay, I'm going to do what you say. She said, close your eyes. And I've always been, somewhat curious of things. And so I was like, I don't believe this for 1 minute. I actually did not really believe it. Anything was going to happen. But I was like, I'm going to try it, okay? And so that's what I did. I was just trying things out. And so I closed my eyes, and she had on a little house jacket with 2 pockets in the front. I closed my eyes, and I didn't close them all the way. Wow. That was the moment I just stood there. I was scared. And I was really taking time out of my work days to go up here and see this woman. It was so time consuming. I'm being real. It was just so time consuming seeing this witch doctor. It was. But I didn't close my eyes all the way. I left them peeked open. It looked like they were closed, but my eyes were not closed all the way. And so I seen her when she switched the eggs. She switched the eggs and she cracked it open in front of me, and there was a baby snake. And I say that sometimes maybe this is why I see a lot of snakes, because I never prayed that curse off of me, because I'm just now remembering it as I had flashbacks and nightmares last night. That's when I remembered that, hey, I did go see a witch doctor. And when she broke the egg and started telling me stuff about my relationship, I said, wait a minute, you don't know what you're talking about, because I said this to my mother, Gloria. But at the time I was telling her that, I was lying to her because I was just trying to make myself feel better. So I told her a lie, and she told the witch doctor, and the witch doctor told it back to me. So it was confusion right there. That was the moment when I was like, no, this isn't right. And I told the witch doctor, I told her, I said, ma'am, I don't know what you're running here, but no, you haven't told me anything that I want to hear. And that's the moment when I left out. I left from there and I didn't go back no more. Now, did I continue to try and practice? Yes, I did. But it was so much. I mean, I'm telling you, it put so much anxiety and fear in me, just the things that you have to do, the things that you have to gather up, like the red devil lie. You have to keep certain people away from your house. You have to do this. You have to do that. It's so much that you have to do concerning the witchcraft, to the point I was like, you know what? Forget this. This is just too much work to even deal with. Not even getting real results. You don't get real results. You get what they give you. And you actually believe it because you're brainwashed. So that's where part of the anxiety came from. And then on my dad's side was the same way. They believed in a lot of witchcraft too, and a lot of going to South Carolina, which we know is Voodoo Nation in South Carolina. A lot of going down there and saying that, the old wise tale stories, they would tell us that things would come up out of their belly and that they were spitting up stuff. And that even one time I had one family member that said a little man came up out of them and walked away. And that's how dramatic that gets right there. That the little man came up out of her as a grapefruit, and when the grapefruit was cut open, the little man came out and walked away. And it's so much to that. As a child, if you sit and hear that stuff is being planted inside of you. That stuff is putting fear inside of you. And so you become fearful. You don't want to go around people. You don't want to trust nobody's cooking. You don't want to do anything. And the whole time you're growing up, not realizing that you're going to grow up and you're going to be the same way. Another thing that on my dad's side, they had a fear of so much stuff. A fear of everything. Fear of storms. Fear of new people coming, meeting new people, fear of going out of the state, and fear of driving. It was so much fear came off of my dad's side. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, what I'm telling you now does not even feel real to me. But all these fears came off of my dad's side, off of family members that had fear in them. And that fear was generational. It became generational. It started passing from their parents to them and then to us. And so now I'm here at 44 years old, and I fight a lot of those anxieties, that fear of driving, the fear of going places. But I'm pretty much over the fear of driving. I will drive. Now, I'm not going to say I'll drive in that heavy traffic because I'm not experienced. But if you give me a chance, I'll try something. And I did push past that fear and start driving on interstates when I did have my own transportation. So it's been like a lot of correction going on with me within the last 7 years. After my dad passed, that's when I realized I had all these issues. I got all these different beliefs down inside of me. Because one side believes in, on my dad's side, they're more in the Baptist and church and stuff. You know, they're really into this Baptist association and stuff like that, into the church on my daddy Marshall's side, which would be Grandma Cammie's husband. And I would say the fear they had on around them and the anxiety that they put off on me was the pressure of not being good enough. And you know, they were kind of sedity, and you know, they kind of was higher class than we were here. And they would put that fear in you about your self-esteem. They would make sure that you knew that you were fat, that you are fat, period. You are fat. They made sure that we knew that we was fat. They reminded us every day of our life. And so it was that fear there of, I don't want to go around them because I don't want to hear the negativity. I don't want to be part of somebody speaking negative to me. And then there was the fear of not going to be good enough. Don't look good enough. Don't talk good enough. Your language isn't good enough. Your body structure isn't good enough. And so we dealt with that part. We're not good enough. And that's what it was. Just not being good enough is a fear all by itself, because it hits your self-esteem. It makes you not want to go out and do places. So that's where a fear of limitations came too, as far as traveling out to family reunions, going to different churches and stuff. You had this fear and walk around with shame. I walked around with fear and shame in me for a long time, all of my life, because of what those family members on that side said about my weight and how I looked and stuff. I walked around with that fear, that depression that fell off. Now, depression fell off in that family big time. I don't think any of them were happy with themselves unless they were making somebody else feel bad. And that's just real. I really don't think any of them were happy with themselves at all. All they knew to do was make people feel bad. And that was whether you were rich or poor. They always had this superior role. On Mother Cammie and Daddy Marshall side, they always had this superior role. Both of those families had this superior role, that nobody was better than them and that everybody was beneath them, whether you were family or not. If you did not look to their liking, you was a nobody. You was a nobody. And that's scary to know that you have family where you're never going to mean anything to them except for if you dress like them, drive what they drive, live where they live. You're not going to mean anything to them. So the best thing you can do is pick yourself up and go to the people who do love you, not the streets. You know, you have to go to people like your kids. You have to go to people who you know are really down for you. Sometimes not even your kids. But you have to go to places, churches, and, try the spirit by the spirit to see who's really down for you, who really is showing you love. And I had to go through all of these steps. It feels like, after 2014, I went through a whole 360 makeover and realized that I had all these anxieties and fears and depression. That's when I first realized that this is a problem for me growing up, because I couldn't hold down normal relationships. So I would have sexships and situationships. I would only thing I would do is have sex and leave the guy out of fear that, I'm not good enough, or something is going to jinx this, or, it was just a lot of still, some of the leftover witchcraft was still in me. And so I had to learn how to train myself and reprogram myself just to live a regular life, be normal, be yourself. It was a lot of training involved. And that training meant for me in this training, that was a sign for me that I had to come off and underneath all of them in order to get to the true person of who I was. And at the root and core of my life, who I really was a person who loved God. That's who I really am. A person who loves God. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to fake anything. I don't have to go dig up some dirt or anything. I don't have to wear these chains around my neck. I don't have to, get somebody's lock of hair. I can just sit there and pray. I don't even have to do evil for evil. I can sit there and relax in the comfort and knowing that God loves me. And that's what broke me from a lot of the anxiety was scriptures, was learning the scriptures. And I couldn't go by the scriptures that I learned from Mother Cammie and also Daddy Marshall, because some of the scriptures were coming from Mother Cammie. Daddy Marshall just read the Bible. He never interpreted the scripture or anything. He just read it to you. But Mother Cammie always beat me with scriptures. Beat me of how I looked and how I was supposed to feel and how I was supposed to act. She beat me literally with scriptures emotionally. And that was one of the reasons why I did stop going to church for like 15 years. And I had to come to a place where I didn't worry about it anymore and just go to church because I wanted to build my relationship with God. And I will say that when I let go of all that, so much anxiety and stuff went with it. It went with it, but it is a timely process. It takes time to train your mind because we're talking about years here. Years of training that was instilled in me for witchcraft. Years of training that was instilled in me for the anxiety to feel like I wasn't good enough, to be emotionally controlled by them, to do what they say. That was years of work that they did on me. They gave me the role of being the person that takes on everybody else's responsibility and not have any time for me. Not worry about it. They actually made me feel like if I took time for me, then that was being selfish and that was being wrong. If I just brushed my hair or anything, that was being wrong. There was no such thing as, Jamie, you're going to be cute, or you don't even need to come around here dressed up, because if you do, I'm going to say something that's going to hurt your feelings. I'm going to say something that's going to knock you down. If your spirits are high, I'm going to make sure that your spirits are low and drained by the time you leave here. So that was a fear all by itself right there, that emotional control. And I had no idea that's what it was, because to me, everything felt normal. It felt like this is who I am. This is how things are going to be forever. But when I started studying the Word of God, I realized that it don't got to be like that forever. I do have a choice. I do have a say in my life. Yeah, I was shocked by all of this, that, all the fears and stuff that were put into me as a child. I watched a lot of torturing of others, a lot of murders. I didn't watch murders. I actually saw the bodies after the person was murdered. And all this added up, and it just, it was shocking. It was shocking. And truth be told, if you don't get that stuff up out of you, that witchcraft and that wavering thinking and stuff, you don't move forward. You just move into a state of just existing and not living. And that's what I had to realize, was that the only way I could live was I had to leave my family's traditions and beliefs behind. I had to get rid of all of that stuff. I had to purge it up out of me. I had to become pure again in order for me to start living my life and actually living a life. And it took years, 7 years, to get to this point where I am now, where I feel emotionally free. Sometimes I do get emotionally stressed, but I'm emotionally free. And so I have the power to change that just by thinking something better or doing something that needs to be done in my home. I don't have to work a route or any of those things, to get things done my way. I don't have to control anybody to love me. I don't have to fear rejection anymore, because I learned that rejection is God's way of protection. I wish I would have known that years ago when I was trying to, be a people person and a family person to every family member. And I'm realizing that I don't need every family member in my life. I can love you and still keep my boundaries. Still decide if I even want to be around you. But back when I didn't know any better, yeah, that was hard. 30-year-old woman walking around crying all the time, acting like a child because I just didn't know any better. And truth be told, it is like this in many families. Many families have the same thing going on, that is more like a cult. These families are more like a cult than family, because they don't let anybody in and they don't let anybody out. And if you do get out, it's hard for you to survive if you don't have some type of faith that you can lean on. And my faith just happened to be in God. And that's how I made it through some of those terrors that I went through. I made it through with God. And I'm thankful. I'm actually happy that I chose to be on God's side.